Lisa in coma for 3 years. Suddenly get pregnant. DNA test shocked everyone. Lisa Bennett was the kind of person who made you feel alive just by being near her. At 25, she had the kind of energy that could light up any room. Her passion for art wasn't just a hobby, it was her soul. She painted with colors that told stories, capturing emotions most people could only feel deep inside. On this particular evening, she had just finished helping a close friend set up an art show in town. The rain was soft but steady as Lisa drove home, the rhythm of the windshield wipers syncing with the song, playing softly on the radio. She was tired but happy, already planning her next painting. The city lights blurred in the rain as she took a familiar curve a bit too fast. That's when everything changed. A truck barreled around the bend, its tires losing grip on the wet asphalt. Time seemed to slow as Lisa's car and the truck collided in a violent crash. The world spun, shattered glass flew, and then everything went dark. When she came to, it wasn't in the arms of her loved ones or in the comfort of her own bed. It was in a stark white hospital room filled with the constant beep of machines. She felt heavy, disconnected from her body, unable to move or speak. Lisa had slipped into a coma. Margaret and Jonathan, her parents, never left her side. Day after day, they held her hand, whispered stories, played her favorite music. Nurses cared for her with gentle kindness, but the silence was deafening. The doctors told the family that Lisa was in a persistent vegetative state, a coma with no signs of consciousness. The odds of waking seemed slim, but Margaret refused to give up hope. 3 years passed in the hospital room where Lisa lay motionless. The hospital became a world apart from the bustling city outside. Time was measured in the steady beep of the machines, the changing of shifts, and the quiet prayers whispered by her family. Margaret read to Lisa every day, from novels to poetry, sometimes holding her daughter's hand tightly, imagining that the sound of her voice might reach deep within. Jonathan played recordings of Lisa's favorite songs, hoping the melodies might spark a flicker of recognition. Nurses treated Lisa with tenderness, talking softly to her, gently cleaning her, turning her regularly to avoid bed sores. Yet, despite all the care, Lisa remained unresponsive. Her body was alive but trapped in silence. Visitors came less and less, friends drifted away, unable to face the reality. Outside, the world moved on, seasons changed, news came and went, but inside Lisa's room, time seemed frozen. The doctors remained cautious, offering no promises. Yet Margaret's hope burned fiercely. She searched for the smallest sign, a twitch, a blink, a change in breath, that her daughter might still be there. One morning, Nurse Julia noticed something strange while reviewing Lisa's routine blood work. Her hormone levels were rising rapidly, signs that typically indicated pregnancy. At first, Julia thought it was a mistake. Multiple tests were ordered, each confirming the same impossible truth. Lisa was pregnant. The hospital was rocked by the news. How could this be? Lisa had been unconscious for 3 years. The family was horrified and confused. What kind of violation had occurred in the quiet hospital room? Doctors prepared for an emergency cesarean, prioritizing the health of both Lisa and the unborn child. The family sat together, the weight of the unknown pressing heavily on their hearts. They hoped for a miracle, that the baby would be healthy, but dreaded the answers they were yet to receive. The day of the operation was filled with tense silence. Lisa lay unconscious on the cold hospital bed while doctors worked quickly. The seconds stretched into an eternity until finally a cry pierced the still air. A baby girl, alive and breathing. Margaret wept as she held her granddaughter for the first time. Jonathan's fists clenched tightly, his jaw set in anger and pain. They named the baby Hope, a fragile light in a dark storm. But joy was tangled with sorrow. How could this have happened? Who had done this to Lisa? The family demanded answers. The hospital promised an investigation. Behind closed doors, fear and suspicion began to fester. Margaret and Jonathan refused to stay silent. They pressed the hospital for a thorough investigation. Security footage was reviewed, staff were interviewed, and hospital records were scrutinized. The family's anxiety grew with every passing day. Among those questioned was Dr. Anthony Lewis, the chief neurologist entrusted with Lisa's care, a man who had been present nearly daily during Lisa's coma. The hospital atmosphere changed. Once calm and routine, it became thick with whispers and suspicion. The family clung to hope that the truth would come to light. The police collected DNA samples from all male staff who had access to Lisa. The hospital was tense. Rumors flew. Staff looked over their shoulders. The waiting was agonizing. Finally, the DNA results came back. The truth exploded like a bomb. Dr. Lewis was the father of Lisa's baby. Shock rippled through the hospital. The man trusted to care for Lisa had betrayed her in the worst possible way. He was arrested immediately. The family braced for the storm ahead. During interrogation, Dr. Lewis remained cold and unapologetic. He admitted his actions with a chilling lack of remorse. "She couldn't say no," he said simply. Detectives were horrified. The evidence was overwhelming. Margaret and Jonathan felt a bitter relief. Justice had begun, but their pain was far from over. The trial was a national spectacle. Witnesses came forward, revealing a culture of silence and fear that allowed the abuse. Nurses admitted they had noticed warning signs but felt powerless. The courtroom was tense. Lisa's family told their story with heartbreak and strength. The defense tried to discredit witnesses, but the weight of evidence was undeniable. Dr. Lewis remained stoic and unrepentant, fueling anger in the room. Each day, the courtroom saw more damning evidence. Lisa's parents watched, heart aching, as every secret was laid bare. The jury listened, absorbed by the emotional testimonies. Public outrage grew. People demanded justice not just for Lisa, but for all vulnerable patients. The jury returned with a verdict: guilty. Dr. Lewis was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Tears fell as justice was served. The hospital pledged reforms to protect patients. For Lisa's family, it was a hard victory, but a crucial step toward healing. Certainly, the story of Lisa Bennett and her unimaginable ordeal quickly captured the nation's attention. Media outlets across the country covered the scandal with intensity. Headlines screamed betrayal and demanded justice. The public was furious that a trusted doctor had abused an unconscious patient. The story became more than just Lisa's. It became a symbol of the vulnerable being failed by the system meant to protect them. Margaret and Jonathan found themselves thrust into the spotlight, speaking openly in interviews about their pain and their fight for justice. Their voices were steady but filled with raw emotion. "No one should ever be left helpless and unprotected," Margaret said in one interview, her eyes shining with determination. Support poured in from strangers around the world, letters of encouragement, donations to help with medical costs, and offers of assistance. At the hospital, the atmosphere shifted. Investigations were launched at the highest levels. The board promised sweeping reforms, better patient monitoring, stricter staff screenings, and training to prevent abuse. But despite the promises, the scars left on Lisa and her family ran deep. The spotlight was harsh, sometimes overwhelming, but it also brought a sense of purpose, using their pain to help others. Meanwhile, Lisa's body was quietly beginning to heal in ways no one expected. 6 months after the trial's conclusion, nurses began noticing subtle changes. A finger twitched, an eyelid fluttered. Doctors ran new tests and scans that showed improving brain activity. Each small step was a victory, a glimmer of hope that had seemed impossible. One crisp morning, as sunlight poured through the hospital window, Lisa's eyes slowly opened. The room fell silent as Margaret gasped, and tears streamed down her face. Lisa's voice was weak, but when she whispered, "Mom," years of silence broke like a flood. Hope was reborn, not just in her daughter, but in Lisa herself. Recovery was slow and painful. Lisa struggled to piece together the fragments of a lost time. With gentle patience, Margaret and Jonathan began to tell her the truth about the accident, the coma, the baby born in silence, and the man who had betrayed her. It was a story that no mother should have to hear about her daughter, yet it was the reality they faced. Lisa listened quietly, pain and confusion etched on her face, but the love and strength in her family carried her through. Then came one of the most tender and overwhelming moments of her life. Lisa met Hope, her baby girl, who was already toddling, curious and bright. When Hope smiled and crawled into her mother's arms, something ancient and fierce stirred in Lisa's heart. The bond between mother and child was immediate and unbreakable, a light that began to heal the deepest wounds. As Lisa's strength grew, so did her determination. She entered rehabilitation, relearning how to walk, speak, and live. But beyond physical healing, she found a new mission: to be a voice for those who could not speak for themselves. She began speaking publicly about patient rights, safety, and the need for vigilant care. Her story became a powerful testament to resilience and justice. One day, Lisa faced a final confrontation she never thought she'd have: a visit to Dr. Lewis in prison. The man who had stolen years from her and harmed her in ways words could barely capture. Lewis was broken, pleading for forgiveness, his icy facade cracked by regret and desperation. He begged to see Hope, to make amends. But Lisa, standing tall and strong, held firm. "No," she said, quietly but firmly, protecting her daughter fiercely. "Some wounds cannot be healed by words. This is where your story ends." With that, Lisa stepped away, leaving behind a past that would never define her future. Together with Hope, Margaret, and Jonathan, Lisa walked toward a new chapter: a life of hope, love, and hard-earned peace. The past was dark, but their bond shone brighter than ever. And with every step forward, Lisa reclaimed her story, her strength, and her place in the world. Thank you so much for watching. Please, if you haven't subscribed, click on that subscribe button now. Turn on notifications, so whenever I post more interesting stories, you'll be the first to get them. Also, I want to know where you are watching from. Consider dropping your location in the comments section. I really appreciate you. I do not take your support for granted. See you in my next video. Bye-bye.